Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat, and with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
December 15th, unusually warm. Barely enough breeze to clamor wind chime in song. My snow-white male Persians, Samson and Marley, are front porch chillin', keeping me company as I contemplate poem for relating moment. Samson looks like an albino lion with juvenile mane, eyes creased to dream as he naps away during the hardest part of day, aligned to the shadow of porch column, casting cooler shade, blocking the brunt of starshine as sun encompasses earth in daily circuit, crossing the ocean blue of vaulted sky. Marley, more stout in puma musculature, slumbers in the doorway of the entrance foyer, making possible quick retreat to the safety of home. Should anybody come up and he need to escape and run from outward threat. Like a miniature polar bear or bleached teddy bear, he is the fixture of calm, statuesque in sphinx-like pose, a mound of squeezable plushness, his silky fur, the girth of calm stillness, which makes him irresistible to pass without temptation to grab him, lift him, and engulf him in passionate embrace. My little white lions, what joy they bring the world I share with those around me, such character personified in their animalistic grace. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen. I appreciate you taking the time to join me. Many of you know that I have three white Persians, and so I thought I'd share a poem about them. Just something that I wrote over the winter, because I know that all of you, our animals, are like our children and what joy they bring to our worlds and how um, they instill calm and peace and serenity in sometimes a very mad world. So, anyways, I'm glad to be here again with all of you in fellowship, and I thank you for always coming to join me in the show and sharing time with me. It's a great honor to be able to come to you in this manner and to discuss all the different things that we are able to discuss. Also, I guess I should give you an update. I have not heard from Peter, and he's not on Skype, so we're going to forego, as for right now, the third segment, which the latter part is very, very interesting in connection to the whole um, repository, the ancient library of the giants, which has been most recently discovered in the Basiji Mountains. And so we will talk about that at a later date. And it's kind of my fault because I wasn't able to send him confirming email recently. And I've been just crazy busy and it slipped my mind. But, anyways, I'm going to give everybody an update on some of the things that I'm involved in and the things that I'm doing. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about this whole situation as far as the Orlando shootings. And I'm also going to invite Kathy to come on with me if you should want to, sister, if you have anything you'd like to say or contribute to the discussion. And I'm also going to open up the phone lines and invite people to call in should you be interested in. I know this is something that is on everybody's radar, and it's something that, with all the false flag terrorist events and all the things that happen, we never get the straight story. And there's always some kind of twist, some kind of loop. I mean, it's maddening trying to decipher the news and the propaganda that is streamlined on all of the major networks whenever something like this happens. And it's up to us, those of us that discern truth and seek it out, to read between the lines and to see what they are saying and what they aren't in order to make sense of story. And so um, I'm going to ask that people wait at least the first segment. And then should you want to call in, the call in number for Studio B is 310-421-4053. And as I said, please wait till the first segment is passed. That way I can make some announcements. And Kathy, if you want to, just shoot me something over Skype and I'll bring you on at that time. And if not, it's all good, sister. I totally understand. It's total surprise even for me as far as what I'm gonna do this evening. But to give you an update on one of the things that I am involved in is the Thracian Chronicles and the translation of those from the Bulgarian, the ancient Thracian script, which has only recently been deciphered, and by one of my friends, which I'm considered a great honor to know him, Savetin Gardaskill, who is the brother of Dr. Stephen Guide. And he's also greatly involved with the Thracian Church, who are the owners of those particular scriptures. And for those that have heard me talk about or to read from the two books that I currently have translated into English, which I was working on the final details of that. Okay, great. Thank you, sister. And so and Kathy will join us after the first segment too. So that should be really interesting. She's always loads of information, and so I'm sure she's got insight into the story, which I haven't yet had chance to, go into, and so she'll be a great asset to the discussion. And so, anyways, as far as the Thracian Chronicles, I have been having bi-weekly meetings, um, or every other week meetings with uh, a translator and with Zevatin Gardaskill, he lives in Bulgaria, and our translator, I believe, is in London, and my other friend, who's the linguist who translated the text, lives in Sweden, and so we get together every other week, and we talk about how to progress on making these works available to those of you that are interested in it. And the two books that I have done shows on and that I have presented in fullness are the book of Atam and Ua and the Chronicles of Longinus. And it's my opinion that in looking at all of the ancient texts, all of the different versions of the life of Adam and Eve, which there are many, there's a Hebrew version, a Latin version, um, um, a Georgian, an Armenian, a and a not Scandinavian, but I forget. But anyways, there's a number of different versions, and all of them present the story in a little bit different manner. And but the why I think that the Thracian Chronicles version is the oldest is because it has chapters which are completely unique and different from any of the other that are available to the public currently. And it presents the story in a little bit different way, and it has great detail, extra detail, which is not found also within the other extent stories. And so at some point, we will be making all of that information available. It's just that right now, there are other linguists and translators which are working on the text that both Alexander and I already worked on. And so, and they're, connected to the Thracian church, which is really underground because they're still persecuted over there. Um, and and so I had promised that we would try to have this out by the end of summer, but that is not looking feasible. But this evening, I'm going to tell you about the other books that are also involved or that make up the collection as far as the Thracian Chronicles. So you'll have an idea of the different segments and also the other books that we will be bringing to you at some time. The next book I'm hoping to get hold of as soon as possible is called the Book of Navi. But I'm going to present them to you in order and give you a description of them so you'll understand um, as to how much information is compiled within these Thracian Chronicles and how much will be released to world when we can make it happen. When we're finally able to get it all together and release it to world. It's just a I'm excited just to be able to read them because they're, like I said, they many of them are only found in the Bulgarian language currently and are nowhere else found anywhere else in the world in any other type or version. And so, the books that make up the Thracian Chronicles, the first one, as I mentioned, was the Book of Atam and Ua. It's 68 chapters, and I've already done an 8-part segment. You can find that under my YouTube channel under Endeavor Freedom. The second is called the Book of Navi. It's 44 chapters, and it's about the descendants of Adam and Ua, and tied together specifically with a character named Orphi, who was one of the most ancient priests in of Thracian, the ancient Thracian church, who the Thracians predate the Sumerians and the ancient Egyptians by 1500 years, and they were Christians. They knew about the coming of Christ. They knew that God had a son, and they knew that he worked in tangent. They worked in tangent with the Holy Spirit in forming a Trinity. And they also knew that he would be born of a virgin and that he would come of Adam's line. And so all of that is contained in the Thracian Chronicles, which, as I said, go back like 5500 BC. All right, the third book is called the Book of Ari, Arih. It also contains the Chronicle of Avila, Avila. It's 26 chapters long, and it contains a lot of information and material about the ancient Thracian peoples, culture, and historic data. The fourth book is called the Book of Geths, Geths, which is a pseudo for the Goths. It is 60 chapters long, and it contains further elaboration on the Thracian historic data, and includes the ancient Thracian tribes. And it also speaks about, specifically in this book, Attila, which everybody knows Attila by Attila the Hun, and Hun being short for Hungary, and that people believe that he was a Hungarian. But in this text, it mentions and speaks of him as being Bulgarian or ancient Thracian, that he's a Thracian descendant. And he was not Hungarian, as some people believe. Um, Also, and I'm reading notes from one of the individuals that sent me the information on these texts. During his lifetime, there existed no Hungary yet, but was called Pannonia, an old geographic region in modern day Hungary. And it was populated by the Bulgarian Paeonians. And so that's the explanation for Attila. All right, there's three more books that are part of this. The fifth book is called the Book of Longinus, the Chronicles of Longinus, which I've already read. It's 18 chapters long, and I've shared that in a three-part show. Uh, Fascinating. It reminds me of I just recently had the chance to watch the movie Risen, which I thought was very well done. It was extremely touching, but it reminded me completely of the story of Longinus, because in the movie Risen, I forget the gentleman's name, but he was a Roman centurion that was charged with finding out what had happened to Yeshua's body after he was resurrected and he disappeared. Um, and he was following up on the story that the his disciples had stolen his body, and it was beyond his belief, because he had with him and 700 soldiers had rolled the stone in place and put posted guards, and then for some disciples to come in and steal his body was just baffling to him and unheard of. And so, anyways, Longinus, in the Chronicles of Longinus, Longinus is the Thracian soldier which pierced the side of Christ during his crucifixion. And having witnessed all of the supernatural events which then took place, the earthquakes, um, the blood moon, the lunar eclipse, it's rising blood red, the temple, the veil of the temple being rent, the earthquakes which happened, and even the signs in the stars, with the blood red moon, the lunar eclipse, and all of that. Um, he then had some blood drip into his eye when he pierced the side of Christ, and it healed his blind eye, which had been, he lost his eyesight in that eye a long time ago from a war wound, and it healed it. And so afterwards, he believed that Yeshua was the Son of God and started hanging out with his apostles and wanting to learn more, just like the individual in the movie The Risen. I mean, it's almost like they listened to those shows that I did and then wrote the movie. I mean, it's that similar. It's crazy. But anyways, the sixth book is called The Acts of the Apostle Andrew, as witnessed by a female apostle named Maximilia. Now, when I say apostle, not one of the official 12, but, like Mary Magdalene, was one of the followers and disciples of Christ. And that particular text is 13 chapters long. The seventh book is called The Acts of the Apostle Lucas. And he writes to Theophil, who is the son of Longinus. Longinus, in the Chronicles of Longinus, also is writing his account, which is almost like his a gospel of his experience and um, the his all the things that happened to him in connection with Christ, which is like the other gospels accounts. Um, and so they're writing. Luke is writing to Theophil, who is the son of Longinus, and that's where this particular book comes from. The Acts of the Apostle Lucas, and it's 28 chapters long. And then there's a whole other portion called the Thracian epistles, which are 185 pages in and of themselves. And so you have those seven massive compilations, and then 185 pages comprising the Thracian epistles. And so that's what we are looking forward to getting out into everybody's hands as soon as possible. And I'm sorry that I'm not able to send those of you that have requested PDF copies of the Book of Adam and Eve or the Chronicles of Longinus. I'm not able to share those currently. You can listen to the radio programs, but I can't give them to you in writing right now, just because um, the Thracian Church has copyright on all that, and I've been asked not to. And so I totally respect their position. And I've even told them that they should publish them as they are right now so that they will be copywritten, and then later change them and update them when the other translators are done. And I'm actually waiting to hear back from them as to whether they are willing and wanting to do that. And if so, then we will be able to, within a couple months, to provide those translations, because I've already got them formatted and compiled in book form somewhat. Of course, I have some finalization to do with it, but it should not take me long at all to get them into book form and to make them available to the public once I get the go ahead to do so. And so I know a lot of you are excited to get those. I myself am excited to get the other portions of it, and it's fascinating read. It absolutely is. The Holy Spirit will move you as you read, hear, or listen to them. And so check them out. You can there's a three-part segment on my YouTube channel under Endeavor Freedom, ENDEAVOR Freedom, FREEDOM, and the I've got a playlist called the Thracian Chronicles that includes the 8 parts of the Book of Atam and Ua, and also part um, the three portions of the Chronicles of Longinus. And also, I've been asked to make all of the Chronicles of Longinus available on one show. So at some point, I will do that. I will dedicate 1 2 hour show to just reading them, all 18 chapters from the first to the last, and so that they'll be all on one show and then people can find them in that manner. Because I read them as I got them, and I got them in portions, and I wanted to make them available to you, and so um, that's what I did. Also, one other thing, as far as the work that I'm doing with the Thracian Church, is that my friend Alexander, who's the Swedish linguist who translated these texts and made them available to me, he's going to be joining me at some point within a month or two to answer some people's questions about the origins of the Thracian Chronicles, how they were deciphered, where they were located, where they were found, all of those kind of things. And then also Sevatin Gardaskil, who is the brother of Dr. Guide, and it was his and Dr. Guide's work that actually translated the Thracian script when it was undecipherable and had remained so until around 2003. And then they had been working to study the many different artifacts. A lot of the doors ended up closing on them. People were trying to hide and keep this material um, out of the public's knowledge. And but they did write together a 4-book set called the Thracian Script Decoded. And in the first two, there are like a portion, 30 to 40 pages, which were written in English to explain how the translations and the decipherment was done. And also, for those that can read Bulgarian, I would most certainly get these books if you can. They're already becoming difficult to find. I've only been able to get my hands on one of them, but luckily my friend was able to send me PDF copies of the other portion that was in English. And so, anyways, also you can look if you keyword search on Google Thracian script decoded. There is a PDF available of the first book, Thracian script decoded number 1, and you can read through that PDF and read the English portion. It's about, again, 30 to 40 pages long, and it will totally give you an idea as to how they were able to do it in deciphering this material, and also how they have been persecuted because of it. And it's also my opinion that Dr. Guide was killed over this um, poison. All right, we'll be right back, and Kathy will be joining me. All right, welcome back, everybody. To open up this segment, I'm gonna start with something that one of my friends told me about, and it's the craziest thing. Some guy, I don't know who he is. His name is Pablo Reyes. In December 26th of 2015, he wrote in response on somebody's Facebook. He said this: "Call me crazy, but in 2016, Hillary Clinton will be the first female president. The world will go crazy over the death of a gorilla. Prince will die. Muhammad Ali will die. Kimbo Slice will die. Donald Trump will die. And the USA will experience the worst mass shooting in history. I'm not trying to scare anyone, but you'll remember my name." Um, Kathy, what do you think about that?
Wow. Um, I'm not surprised. A lot of people though are pointing out that it's not the worst. I was just, wounded knee is greater in number,
Uh-huh.
um, and it seems like they have bumped the number to for the effect and to be able to attach that label to it for future agenda purposes. They'll bring that label. It's the worst mass shooting in history, massacre. They'll have all those words that'll all be attached to it. So
Right, right. Yeah, so I'm gonna post a link to in the chat room for those that are interested in what I just read. I don't know who this individual is, but for him to have said that back then is just kind of crazy, and makes me wonder if he's got some kind of inside Illuminati connection or something of that nature. I don't know, or if he's
we
some kind
see
of
so much of that with the little boy and the gator. I'm seeing things. I just started following someone who looks at gematria for headlines and that, and he had something. And then Enter the Stars Casey had the day before in one of the decodes that he does talked about in relation to the shooting Gator and had it was in relation to the shooting, but he had Gator. It was on a skateboard, and this was the day before because this just happened. So, yeah, these things are very strange, but that's
Yeah,
why I keep telling people there's so much going on in the supernatural that is, in line. The veil is being pierced. It's thinning.
right.
So, yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised.
Oh, also for listening audience, this is my often co-host and really good friend Kathy Dunson. Kathy, why don't you give out where people can find all of your work and efforts and support you, and because you keep abreast of all of this information and help me to maintain as far as a pulse on the current events with me just being narrowly focused on my books and my work. You're my inside to the rest of the world. So,
Thank
if you
you.
would, yeah,
Well, and I really started sending out more emails to, my little core group that you're a part of because there's so much going on. Um, Tribulation Now Facebook page is a place that, I started some years ago to support the Tribulation Now radio show, and I'm no longer with that, but we were so well known, and we have such a following there. And there's also a Twitter page, the same name, Tribulation Now, and I have B, who helps me there with prayers and visions and prophecy and that sort of thing, Israeli news. And then I look at the current events in relationship to end times. And like right now, I mean, we post a lot of stuff, but I think of it more like a news feed, a place to come to get the pulse of things that you're used to seeing. I have a whole range of sources that I trust that I've gathered over the years from YouTube channels and news, hard news, and more insightful analysis to biblical prophecy and that. And we have a new person who's joined us, Christian Jobert. He's in South Africa, and so he's kind of trying to find his way in there. So that's what we do. Come and take a look if you would like to keep up with us.
Also, I posted some of the videos and some of the stories that you sent me, and people can go to fallenangels.tv to find those articles, and specifically the one that I thought we should bring up and mention this evening is the Orlando nightclub shooting questions and anomalies surround the quote unquote worst mass shooting in U.S. history. But before we do so, I want to just get your insight and tell you a little bit about the things that I've seen. But it seems to be that, there's this cast of crisis actors that always seems to pop up in connection to some of these mass shootings like Sandy Hook, the Boston bombing, and there's been others. There's some numerous now. It's crazy. It's hard to even keep up with. But um, in oftentimes, and for those that don't know anything about this or what I'm talking about, if you look and you study, and David Wise does a really good job of this at Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, DITRH on YouTube. Um,
And Facebook.
yeah,
Yes.
and Facebook, and he puts together a lot of information, and he shows how some of these crisis actors have been reported in the news as being murdered multiple times in different shootings, and which those kind of things bring out the fact that there's some kind of weirdness associated to all of this, and that there's some kind of hoaxing going on, but that they are in fact doing these kind of things, these false flag events, and perpetuating them and propagating them as agenda to go after our guns, which even like uh, one just recently an interview I watched of a mother that supposedly lost her son um, in the Pulse in the nightclub. I believe he was in the bathroom or something of that. And then she you can see in the interview she's reading from these cue cards and she's trying to display all these emotions, but at the very end she has this grand emotional appeal to please go after the semi-automatic weapons and
And
to
she said she didn't want to be a part of this club and didn't want anybody else to be a part of this club.
right.
And she was wearing dark sunglasses, and that was served two purposes. She kept glancing down. You could even see she was glancing down to read a script, and she wasn't showing the emotion. It was really very fake looking. I mean, you want to be very wary. Is there actual killing going on here? And I'm
Right.
not sure about that. I mean, they wouldn't hesitate to kill us. I don't
Right.
think I mean, they consider us useless leaders. It's whatever their agenda is. They don't care about us. Jesus Christ cares about us. That's what I keep
Hmm.
telling people on Facebook. But I don't know because I haven't seen any bodies. There were no ambulances. There
Right.
was a pickup truck that they showed, and no one pointed this out as well. When they threw this one body into it, it wasn't a dead person, it was somebody going to the hospital, supposedly, in this pickup truck. About four or five of the policemen jumped in with him. That made no sense either. Nobody pointed that out. Why would so many policemen jump into a pickup truck making a run to the hospital? So, I mean, there are so many things. She's a very interesting person. They have a video found online of her auditioning for Wheel of Fortune. And somebody juxtaposed that with there's a movie clip. I can't remember the actress now. I'm going to be on TV. I'm going to be on TV.
Right.
They put some humor into these things. There's a whole group and new people that I didn't know about before because I've followed these things for so long with Boston and Sandy Hook. But there's a lot of people out there. They're right on this. I can see things just watching the news, and I've hardly watched any, but I'm catching up on these clips. The most telling one that I saw just a few hours ago, I don't know if other people have seen this, but there's a group of men who are carrying one person. And at first it
Yes.
looked like a mannequin, but I think yes, it is a person. Well, no, there are two times that they do this. First, they are walking towards the nightclub,
Right.
and
Which they
I
should be
mean,
running the other direction if there was
exactly.
actually a terrorist event going on.
I don't know if you've seen this one though. With one person that they're carrying, it's very close to the fence. They walk along and it's caught just the tail end, and they stopped and they let the person down and they started high-fiving and kind of dancing around. Like,
Right.
okay, we're done with our little, scene here, and
Right.
it's been caught. I mean, they were just being sloppy.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, because they're performing for the cameras, and they're basically acting in order to project a certain kind of image and scenario, just like with the woman who was doing this interview where she was reading from this cue card and kept glancing down, and she's trying to create these fake tears, and there's a police officer behind her who is keeping people away and not letting anybody come around her to see what she's doing. And so the whole thing is staged. And like even with what you're talking about, I saw this as well. The weird thing is that these people are carrying this individual past the cameras towards the Pulse nightclub, which is completely bizarre because if you are indeed in the trying to get away from a terrorist event, you're most certainly not going to be walking back towards the scene of the crime, especially when it hadn't been contained and the shootings were supposedly still going on. And then yeah, this guy who's supposedly hurt or so bad that they're having to carry him, as soon as they get past the cameras, they set them off, and then they're doing this kind of high five thing.
exactly.
And you're like, What is going on? This is
But I
completely
guess
bizarre.
they feel the freedom to do that because the police, everybody's a part of it,
Right,
and it's
exactly.
closed
Yeah.
off. I've seen one today also where there were two interviews, and so the media is in on it. We know that, and it was obvious green screen behind the people.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, you could tell that from the perspective of the background, and it was, it looked like it was all closed off, but I mean, you could tell that these interviews being done, and the people being interviewed, they would look back and remark how being back at the scene, to try and play into what's going on. There was another interview I saw, and the guy emphasizes this is real life, you know.
Right,
So
right.
I mean, there's just one thing after another, and we haven't even touched on what this one article on the anomalies. I've got like several things that I pulled up. I did want to before I wanted to bring this up. I emailed you guys a couple of times this morning because I thought this was important. There's an article at Daily Sheeple, right? Yeah, Daily Sheeple, and it's called "Is Something Big Coming?" Report FEMA just quietly activated civilian corps. So you might want to check that out. And that followed up for me. I'll read you this quick sentence. Dave of X22 Report, who I follow, and it's financial news, global news, very good channel to follow, X22 Report. And he said at the very end of last night's B program, he had an insider send him some information. She was very concerned about giving this information to him to read. Anyway, what she said, it was a warning from a person working with FEMA. A project that was scheduled for June 30, 2018 was being pushed up to June 30, 2016. And this is a quote. She was expecting a major event. The office of the governor, she didn't say which state, is preparing all emergency planning by ELT committee to be sure all checks are in place. And she did receive this notice the beginning of May, and said that we should expect, I mean, we don't know for sure. We should expect electricity, gas, water could be shut off, and food supplies could be hard to get. But he couldn't confirm that. But then I saw this article from Daily Sheeple. Is something big coming in FEMA's activated civilian corps? So that was kind of confirming for me. So I wanted to warn people.
Yeah, and I tell people to be really, if you're not in a state of perpetual preparedness, something's wrong with you. Because with everything that's on the horizon, and I live to not, I'm not a doomsday prepper, and I'm not someone that is running around screaming the sky is falling, the sky is falling. But I know what they have planned. I know what they have written about, what they have schemed and attempted to orchestrate in their own words. And I know that they are waiting for a certain time, whatever the domino is, whatever the trigger is, that they have planned this massive financial collapse, a com, um, total destruction of the American and the world, the global financial system as it is, and that they are going to replace it and roll out a whole new currency that the Federal Reserve notes, and the Fed, as far as the way that they've been doing things, that they are pushing things and orchestrating things specifically so that they collapse in the manner that they are, and in a grand way, not something like what we've seen even with the Great Depression and with the collapse in 87 or 89 or whenever it was, what we see even as current as 2007, that what is on the horizon,
The worst in
yeah,
history. It'll
it's
be bad.
colossal. It will dwarf all of those things that
But people manage to ignore it because they watch the mainstream news, and the mainstream news is towing the political line, the government line, their handlers line. And people are very, they don't want to have the apple cart upset, and they believe normalcy bias teaches them that no, it could never happen in America, but it will. And I mean, all you've got to do is look at the fiat currency, this financial system that has been designed to collapse. They've propped it up as long as they possibly could, and it's coming. It's only a matter of how much longer can they conceal the lie and conceal that it's a house of cards going to fall. Even the big names now, Soros, Druckenmiller, I think is his name. I'm not real good on this. I mean, I look at it, I find it, but at Zero Hedge, if you go there, the big names, they're moving out.
Right.
So, it's everybody knows, except the sheeple, for
Right.
want of a
Exactly.
better, people who do not, and they don't even want to hear it. I thought it was kind of funny. Dave's broadcast, the first video, he was talking about how he tried. His father had asked him something, and he said, my dad doesn't listen to me what I say. And you would think, my gosh, all these people are following him and listening to his financial advice. His own dad won't listen, and I thought that was hysterical because I mean that's what so many of us experience. And
Exactly.
he said, I tell him things when he wants to know. So
Yeah. What's that biblical passage about a prophet in his own, his own
right,
town? Yeah. And
exactly.
not recognized. And yeah, that's what a lot of us have experienced and what we've all gone through. Matter of fact, I was just sharing earlier today. An individual had asked me about how I handle knowing truth, and I'll actually share that. Let me pull it up real quick. But I I answered him this way because this is so clear for so many of us. It happens in the same thing. We all live kind of parallel lives, but this is what I wrote. There was a time when I wanted to shout the truth from the rooftops and share it with everybody that came across my path, whether they wanted to listen to it or not. But I've since learned that most people have no concern for truth, and that even when confronted by it, will resist it. I also discovered that they are willing to kill the messenger rather than to listen to what others have to say. And so I have now learned to hold my center and share truth in the shows that I do and make it available to those that are seeking guidance. But as far as meeting and talking to people in person, I have learned to only share it with those that are ready, as most are not. God bless you in your seeking. And so, this is something because a lot of people, when they begin to awaken to these things, they want to share it with their loved ones more than anything.
Mass
They
emails.
yeah, yeah, they want their spouses, their parents, their children, first and foremost, to have interest in what they're talking about and to make it important like it is to those of us upon really discovering these kind of things and really awakening these kind of things and having the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and a mind to understand. We want that for our family members more than anything, and yet when they're totally not interested, they don't even want to talk about it, they just shrug you off. Oh, and then they start labeling you just insane, crazy, and like we need to have you put into a padded room or go have an exorcist to take the demon out of you, or I mean, or hang you up and shake you until all of this is gone from you, or like put you on medication so that you get better, like there's something wrong with us. But I
Did
mean,
you see the story I sent out yesterday? The father of a boyfriend, that he was arguing with the girlfriend about flat Earth.
oh yeah, yeah, I did, and
he
they got into
started
a big
he
fight,
started throwing all this stuff into the bonfire.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the end of the article was neither one would change their views.
right. And and you and I, we talked not even long ago about how so many people are at each other's throats over issues, differences of opinions that
Right.
aren't even, they
Not
yeah,
salvation.
non-salvational, and they should not. they're just differences of opinion. And even
But
though,
they're saying awful things.
yeah, totally, and attacking each other and making videos about each other, and
What
um,
a waste of time, and it's
exactly,
not glorifying God,
right.
not at all.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah, it to me it's a total waste of time, and it's something that, I can't get involved in that kind of thing. And there was a time when I used to answer all the comments that people made on all of my, it's over 700 videos now on YouTube, and I cannot keep up with all of that. And
Then I wanted to add, because the Lucifer, father of Cain, has come under some heavy attack.
yeah.
uh, I just finished listening to the show you just did.
Hold on, Kathy.
Okay.
We'll be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour. We will go definitely into more of this story here in a minute, but I want to give Kathy a chance to finish up her comment, and then we'll go from there. Kathy?
Yes, you were on a radio show, Deception Detection, with Kay Carswell and Chad Riley, and it's called "In the Beginning" with Zen Garcia, and it was only an hour, or wait, 2 hours and 20
Yeah, two
minutes.
hours. Yeah.
And in that amount of time, you covered A to Z, from the texts and the Enochian calendar, even the serpent seed. You read the that one article, or uh, it's called "Life is Like a Box of Chocolates." The one,
Right, right,
yeah, about the third strand DNA.
right.
I mean, all of it was fascinating. I don't know how people could come away from just listening to that and not have a renewed um, intrigue, interest into just understanding. I People that I see constantly, comments and posts and videos and long shows that don't seem to stop, where people seem to want to just hear themselves talk. They don't want to understand, they don't want to listen to anybody or investigate or learn. And somehow, we've got a lot of people dropping out of the woodwork who think they have a lot of knowledge on it. And it's just not the case. And in that short broadcast, and it's on Spreaker, Deception Detection is the name of their show. In the Beginning with Zen Garcia. Take a listen to that. It's great. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? I don't know. I forgot. Anyway, oh, I know. You mentioned, and I was unaware of this, that you had done some videos with Dr. Joy when you were first connecting,
Yes.
kind of bouncing off, you coming from your perspective with the extra biblical text, and her from King James only. And that sounds fascinating. I was unaware of those. I'm going to have to look into those and watch.
Yeah, they're I believe it's in a playlist on my YouTube called The Garden Parable.
Right, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also did another one called The Days of Noah, and which Professor Truth is going to release the second hour sometime soon when he gets a chance. And also he'll be coming on and joining us for show at some time. But yeah, Dr. Joy and I, because she is King James version only kind of scholar, even though she reads some of the extra biblical material not in a grand way like I do. I try to study and read all of it. But yeah, when we first hooked up and worked together and started shooting video together, and this is going back in 2006, she was the first person that I met that understood that Cain, as his name said, was acquired by Adam, that he was not a blood-born son, progeny, born in the similitude and likeness of Adam, but that he was a stepson. He was acquired, and that he was, after the character and nature of his father Lucifer, Satan the adversary, which is why he was a murderer, liar, and deceiver. But I tried to, in the shows that I did with both Chad and Kay, and also the one that I did with,
Now You See TV.
yeah, Now You See TV, to take it all the way back and as if I was talking to people that had never heard about this information.
And
And why?
really, in that brief time, you did so well. You mentioned in just this one with deception detection that, really to study it, it takes years. I
Yes.
mean, and there is so much depth to what you have done, and it's all in your book. And I don't think people can grasp it. I mean, there's just such a resistance, and that's what we see.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Resistance, and
It's a shame because it explains so much
I
that people
agree.
don't understand. And in the mainstream churches, they don't ask the question.
I absolutely agree. Let me make mention really quick for those of you that can to please do support Revolution Radio. Go to freedomslips.com, click on the donate button. There are several things there in order to exchange as barter for your support, and that we really do appreciate you doing so. It provides individuals like myself a platform to talk about and cover all the information that we do share and cover, and that Revolution Radio really is the largest listener supported commercial free and corporate free entity out there. There's two studios and numerous hosts covering a wide array and eclectic topics, and bringing you, different perspective and angle on everything that occurs out in the world, even like what we're talking about and discussing this evening. And so, Kathy, is there anything else you want to cover before I go into this Orlando? Because, of course, we're going to share commentary as I go through it, but I thought I would read some of it.
One thing I wanted to point out because we're going to address the anomalies here. The bigger picture, it's the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. They've caused a problem. We're reacting. They're going to give us the solution.
Exactly.
They're going to keep doing it until we take their solution. I've noticed, in addition to gun control, which is obviously what they want to be doing, putting on the forefront. Also, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in their campaigns are calling for bombing ISIS.
Yes.
And ISIS is a CIA creation.
Right.
So, that's check mark. That's one thing they've been trying to do for years. So, there's multiple fronts going on. They're trying to get them all done right
Right.
now.
Right.
So, and if we don't take this one, there's going to be more. So.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing also, as far as um we you had alluded to this a little bit earlier. Why the hoax? Why the deception? Whereas previous they had no problem with, as far as the false flag events, to really killing people, slaughtering people. Not that I want that kind of thing to happen, but why all of a sudden the switch up and going to psyops where they're basically just propagandizing this whole scenario as occurring, and that all of these people dying, and then they're using these different crisis actors on multiple occasions. And it's becoming clear to those that are looking at these events in great detail that they are recognizing these people almost like they're
Right.
playing in different multiple movies, like
Right.
uh, like
It's a joke in some cases. There's
yeah,
this one girl that they keep putting her picture and everything. She has the same scream going on. She was in Paris even. She was at Boston bombing and Sandy Hook.
yeah.
So,
And so why are they doing it like that? And my answer to that is, uh, I believe they are doing it as such now because they want multiple. They want these events uh, happening every week, and
right,
so and so this is a way for them to do that, to make these kind of occurrences happen every week, 2 or 3 times a week, so that the numbers of these kind of events, because it really it costs for them to pull off really real slaughters, and it also puts people at risk, their own assets. And so this is
right.
one way to create multiple scenarios and to
You look
multiple
at
events.
James Holmes, because I think this is another factor too. You look at James Holmes in the Batman Aurora Theater massacre. I mean, that guy was on drugs. I mean,
Right.
there could be an MK Ultra component.
Right.
There's other things going on in some of these smaller events, or like San Bernardino. You don't know, but I mean, they could have other operatives that they're triggering, and those are people that are involved. And more and more, the perpetrator is being killed,
Yes.
so they are left not to say anything. It's very it's maddening now to see these things. I can't watch the regular news at all when these things are on.
Right.
I'll break
Right.
my television. Boston bombing, that one drives me crazy. It's so
Mm-hmm.
obvious. And Sandy Hook, and you've got these people just one. I mean, I watched like intro to something to kind of see what their spin was. That's the only reason to turn on, see their spin. And he
Yes,
ticked off
exactly.
one after another. False flag, they all
Mm-hmm.
were false flags.
Right.
So there, but there's different components. And I get on our Facebook, because I've been posting a lot of this stuff, questions. Well, why would they do it? Well, it's for control. It is for the control. And people need to understand, this is historical. It goes back, to the early 20th century. Titanic, which you had talked about,
Right.
World War I, World War II, Pearl Harbor, that was a false flag.
Yes.
They
Vietnam War.
Yes. People are unaware. There's an article I just pulled up. It's on Washington's blog, and it's 53 admitted false flags that
Right.
the government has admitted to. So whatever their agenda is du jour, they are designing them to go that direction. I mean, 9/11 started the war on terror. Terror never ends. So they can use that for whatever their purpose is. So, people need to wake up to it and be aware. And you start looking at this event, and we're just Wednesday. We woke up on Sunday to this, and there's so many holes in it already. I mean, that's probably a good place to have you start looking at that article.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that so we don't run out of time. We can share commentary. The name of the article is Orlando Nightclub Shootings, Questions and Anomalies Surround Worst Mass Shooting in U.S. History. It's put out by Vivian Lee. We'll stop as we go to comment, but it says the quote, worst mass shooting in U.S. history, end quote, is reported to have occurred between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning, June 12th, at the Pulse, a nightclub in Orlando, Florida. The act of terror is said to have produced 49 dead and 53 injured. A 50th death was that of the shooter, identified as Omar Sadiq Mateen, who was employed as a security guard since 2007 by the giant multinational security company G4S. The circumstances of the Orlando massacre are suspicious to say the least, with many details fitting into the existing playbook for stage shooting occurrings across the United States. G4S, the world's largest security company by revenue, has its U.S. headquarters in Jupiter, Florida, but operates in more than 100 countries with more than 50,000 employees in the United States. G4S has the international reach and resources to meet the security needs of the global age. The company has expressed its condolences over the tragic event and is cooperating fully with the FBI and other agencies who are investigating the unspeakable tragedy. According to Judicial Watch, G4S is involved in a Department of Homeland Security operation to move illegal immigrants other than Mexicans north across the Mexican border into Arizona, releasing them without proper processing. You actually just told me about that even a week ago. We mentioned that. Perhaps this is the reason that Mateen, reportedly interviewed by the FBI in 2013 and 14, was able to keep his security clearance and gun permits, although he was supposedly under investigation for possible terrorist ties. But who was Mateen, and did he actually perpetrate the deadliest terrorist attack on U.S. soil since 9/11? In light of the many questions and anomalies associated with the event, it seems doubtful that the Orlando shooting occurred as presented by the media. Glaring problems include the following. By Sunday evening, the dead were still supposedly inside the nightclub just like the kids reportedly left inside the Sandy Hook school. Did they not take them to the hospital? Where's the emergency protocol? News reports claimed that by Sunday evening, only a few of the dead had been identified. But doesn't everyone who frequent a bar carry an ID? By 8 p.m. Monday, the names were in, read tearfully on the air by Anderson Cooper, and listed in full on Wikipedia. News footage shows no dead people or even visibly injured people, no ambulances, which you mentioned, rushing to the scene, which is absolutely weird. No colored triage tarps, no EMTs swarming the site, or anything else that might prove the massacre actually occurred, as reported. A few injured victims are shown casually walked or carried away from the club, with one dumped into the back of a pickup for transport. I would also say that these individuals I didn't see any blood on them at
No.
all.
No,
Uh,
the one guy who has been interviewed a lot said he was crawling all over the dead bodies and he had no blood.
Right, yeah, uh-huh. Walked or carried away from the club, with one dumped into the back of a pickup for transport to the hospital. Such scenes were played over and over on television as with the Sandy Hook shooting. We are supposed to believe the reports despite the clear lack of evidence. To make up for this lack, we have a parade of witnesses sobbing without tears and giving unconvincing performances, as seen with many recent false flag events. These include Luis Burbano, who gave interviews to several media outlets soon after the Orlando shooting, like Carlos Alfredendo of the Boston Marathon fame. Burbano became the face of courage under duress, reportedly removing his shirt to wrap it around a man's arm and tying another piece of his clothing to a man's legs. I would also say that in the Boston bombing, they have this one very viewed over and over, the individual that supposedly had his leg blown off, and they're pushing him in a wheelchair down the street in the Boston bombing. And yet, if he had his leg blown off, he would have lost consciousness. He would
Right, he
have
was
bled out.
sitting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he was sitting there holding his leg, and there was no blood coming off of it. He was already an amputee previous to that.
Right.
Uh, but, anyways, continue. In his CNN interview, he said he put a syringe on the man's arm, but then corrected this to say it was a tourniquet. Like Arredondo, Burbano is an actor with several films to his credit. Interviews by assorted officials also sound scripted and strange. These include the state senator Geraldine Thompson, who tells us she is the senator for the district that includes the Pulse nightclub in Tallahassee, although Pulse is actually in Orlando. Drills were involved, as they always are. As with many false flag events, more on this subject is sure to come. Oddly, the June 13 online edition of the Orlando Sentinel highlighted an article originally published in 2015 regarding a drill to prepare nurses for mass casualties. Almost immediately, fundraising efforts, this always happens as well.
I heard 4 million so far.
Yeah, it was like 1 million the first day, but yeah, anyways. Efforts were underway on behalf of the victims, as is familiar from other staged events. Patty Sheehan, Orlando City Commissioner, assures us that there are already people out there raising money. In less than 24 hours, the fundraising page was set up for the victims, had raised 1.3 million, and surely more will roll in. I would also say that I believe it was the Sandy Hook, that there was a fundraising page had already been set up before the event even occurred.
Right.
Um, Also familiar are the online posts that precede the event, documented in Yahoo listings for articles about the Orlando shooting that are dated June 11th, one day earlier, just like what we were talking about. This was the case for other false flag events, notably the Sandy Hook shooting. As for the shooter, Omar Sadiq Mateen, alternately Omar Sadiq Mateen, was a Florida resident born in New York with parents from Afghanistan who was reportedly anti gay, according to his father. His family is more than suspicious, with his father, Sadiq Mateen, supposedly running for the presidency of Afghanistan and well acquainted with U.S. congressmen and officials in the State Department. Omar Mateen was supposedly on the FBI's radar, as already mentioned, but somehow the feds didn't connect the dots, as they always never do. This is a common trope with all U.S. false flag events beginning with 9/11. We are supposed to believe that the intelligence behemoth just doesn't have the capabilities to recognize a terrorist threat, despite the more than 50 billion allocated per year to the 16 intel agencies, as with the Boston Marathon bomber. Tamarin's Sarnavev Mateen was known to the authorities, who let him proceed unfettered, just like in 9/11 too with Muhammad Atta. Mateen wreaked havoc with at least two guns, a Sig Sauer AR-15 style assault rifle, and a Glock handgun. This fits the weapon profile of other alleged perpetrators of mass shooting events, including Syed Farouk and Tashin Malik in San Bernardino, and Adam Lanza of the Sandy Hook shooting. Most of these mass killers have bought their guns, legally obtaining licenses and passing background checks. According to the New York Times article cited above, at least 8 gunmen had criminal histories or documented mental health problems that did not prevent them from obtaining their weapons. Mateen is no exception, fitting the profile perfectly, exhibiting mental health problems, according to his ex wife, who supposedly had to be rescued from the marriage by her parents. Mateen has been judged self radicalized and a lone wolf homegrown terrorist. By all news sources, this was the case with other terrorist actors, including the San Bernardino shooters. Marco Rubio went on record to say that homegrown terrorism is the biggest threat our country faces. His fear is that we're going to see more of this, and no doubt we will. All sources have reported that Mateen called 9/11 at 20 minutes into the attack and pledged allegiance to ISIS over the phone. How convenient of him. And also mentioned the Boston bombers as inspiration. The tape has not yet been released. This is patently ridiculous. Did no one in the club think to jump the killer as he took time? Exactly. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. Uh, if you're going to get shot, I mean, rush the guy, you know? And with all these
And there
people,
were so many in the club,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And if he shot that many, he would have had to have reloaded his clip, you know,
But
two,
but
three
he
times.
also he also stopped mid shooting to call
Yeah, to call
911 and pledge
911. Right.
allegiance to ISIS,
Exactly. I mean, it's
which they
ludicrous.
haven't released that call.
Right, right. It's totally ludicrous.
Yeah.
As he took time to make as he took time out to make this call. This kind of exhibitionism serving to identify the perpetrator and associate her with the terrorist organization of choice was seen in the Paris Charlie Hebdo caper, with Amni Kolibali calling BFM TV for the kosher hyper casher supermarket to tell them his name and announce his connection to the Islamic extremist Kouachi brothers. It's just like the magic passport that made it through the Muhammad Atta's magic passport that made it through the fireball and the bombing to land on the sidewalk in New York on, you know, the World Trade Center bombing.
Paris
Everything
had a
else is
passport
collapse.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it was Paris. There's been another one not recently that had a passport show up.
Yeah, they do the same MO. We're almost done here. Finally, Mateen was conveniently killed by the police. As always, they kill the patsy so they can't answer any questions. Or was he, with only one officer sustaining a hit, but luckily the bullet was deflected by his Kevlar helmet? This has occurred with virtually all other false flag rampages, a notable exception being the Boston Marathon bombing, with Dzhokhar Zarnavev reportedly captured and imprisoned unless he was actually killed while hiding in the boat. One can find many other correspondences between the various staged events, with the Orlando shooting fitting comfortably into the paradigm. In each case, the saddened President Obama makes a heart wrenching statement to the press, in some instances seeming to weep. In his words, Orlando was an act of terror and an act of hate, but love will prevail, as we are reminded again and again. Here, as always, the agenda is multi purpose: gun control, mental health supervision, increased surveillance of the populace, bolstering of the intelligence services, militarization of local law enforcement, further commitment to the war on terror, whether abroad or at home, and in this case, the LGBT program in a strategy devised by the elite and programmed by the media with the people used as dupes. And I mean, she did such an awesome job in putting
Yes.
this all together, and it sums it up in precision.
It's a good place to begin with what's been going on, because I've seen a lot more information just since that. And as I was reading that earlier today, I thought, wow, this encapsulates everything that's going on right now. And people need to know about this. And they don't have, they're sticking on one note with Fox News. I don't listen to the others. I go crazy, but it's, Islam. We've got to we've got to stop that. But see, that's part of the New World Order plan as well, is to divide people, to create the uh, um,
Yeah,
ology.
yeah. All right, we'll be right back, everyone, for final segment. All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. We were talking about the how they were. Well, actually, let me let you finish your comment because you were getting into something. Then I'll.
Well, in secret societies, I've been in Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. I've read these things, and I've come across other Masonic documentation. I don't know exactly from where now, but I mean, that's part of their intent. Long in the works plans to bring migration in, to divide people, divide the countries, and that's why there's all this hatred one to another. I mean, they want the people fighting among the people. So that's what's being engendered in this, and that's why all you're seeing is they're talking about ISIS and Muslims and all that. They're not asking why wasn't anybody jumping on the guy, or how could he shoot people and be on the phone. They don't ask any of the real questions. They're trying to gin up this hatred with Muslims. Even Bill O'Reilly on his show yesterday talked about how there needed to be sensible gun control. I can't remember his exact words, but I was aghast that he was actually going as far as he was. So, I mean, there's a whole big problem here, and what you can see is they're using their Muslim ISIS scapegoat and building that up, but that's to go to war. So, I mean, there's that agenda, there's gun control, everything's right on target with them.
Right. And what the American public and the people do not understand is that all of what's going on in the Middle East, that's all coming home to roost. I mean, the supposed war on terror that's been ongoing since 2001, and the borders are still wide open. They are bringing in terrorists and just dropping off, dropping them off by the van loads. I mean, it is insane the kind of things that are going on that nobody is keeping up with. And we have all these terrorist cells here in the country just sitting idle, that are, and we're talking about professional killers, not just
Exactly.
these
The
patsies that are
gangs,
being set up. Yeah, and the gangs.
MI13, I think, or MH13.
Yeah, the drug cartels,
Right.
and we've been funding them as well, not just with money, but the whole Fast and the Furious exchanging guns for
Exactly. I was going to mention that. Well, and that's why we're in Afghanistan for the drug
right the
trade.
poppy exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know why people, because I'm looking at this other article. I don't know if I sent it to you. It's that activist post by Tony Cartalucci. He's excellent analyst, and he's talking about that's the first connection to look at with this Omar Mateen was the FBI, and it's been confirmed he had been approached by informants, and this is what they do. There's the FBI counterterrorism unit in Miami is particularly aggressive. And what they do, let me read you just a little bit because it's really important. People are totally unaware of this. Informants in this context that are posing as handlers, they approach these individuals, um, and the informants are posing as members of terrorist organizations, and they approach suspects mentally ill or people who have problems, and they coerce them into planning and preparing for terrorist attacks. They give them grandiose ideas before finally aiding the FBI in the suspect's arrest and before the attack is finally carried out. These informants carry out things. It includes providing and training the suspects in the use of real explosives, providing suspects with arsenals of weapons, and that's like Fast and Furious. I don't know why people don't get it that, yes, they're doing this, precisely like those used in the recent shooting in Orlando, Florida. And they encourage the suspects to adopt radical ideology. Yesterday, let me interject, Univision was allowed into his apartment, and they walked all around. It was a really frilly looking place. But like in another recent, maybe it was a San Bernardino, they were allowed in a crime. It would be part of a crime scene.
Right.
And then they showed his concealed carry permit expired, was sitting on the kitchen counter. And then right next to that was some Islam documents.
Of course.
Right. It's crazy. But they engender a delusion of grandeur that these people, mentally unstable people, and his wife has already said that he was. That's another part of the agenda where they're going, because they want to put more controls on people, gun control, and use that as a reason. But then that will go out for other purposes. But engendering the delusions of grandeur and otherwise mentally ill suspects. This article goes on to say that for more than a year, this is an activity that did take place for more than a year, ending in April, a time during which investigators will now be looking for any clues from Mateen that might have been missed. The FBI in Miami focused on a counterterrorism sting that targeted James Medina, who was a homeless man with mental problems. And the Intercept, which is where this article appeared, would reveal that the FBI informant, not Medina, came up with the idea of crediting the planned attack to the Islamic State. This is another one that, they had set up. And in fact, upon reading the FBI's affidavit, it's clear the FBI's informant encouraged and walked Medina through every aspect of the planned attack. So that's something that, they're looking at right now. Did he have the contacts with these informants? And yes, he did.
Yeah, that always seems to be the case. Even like and we talked about this as well in the 93 World Trade Center bombing, how the individual that was tasked by the FBI to perform that terrorist action, he didn't trust his handlers. He recorded his conversations with them, and then they told him that it wasn't a real bomb, and that to go ahead and play it out, because it was just going to be like a like um uh, how they do the planned events. I forget the word right now, but a drill, yeah, like a drill.
Right.
And then when he did, then that's when the bomb actually went off. And so it was after the court case and after his conviction that he released these recorded conversations with his handlers, and then it came out that he was actually working for the FBI. And so this is the same kind of modus operandi with the government being complicit and working with terrorists in order to pull off these false flag events, in order to drive the agenda for either increased security budget or for other things like gun control, the creation of the Homeland Security after
Right.
after 9/11. I mean, all of those things. Back in Oklahoma City, that bombing that was blamed on Timothy McVeigh, there were bombs that were found inside the building, and that those bombs show that the building was blown from inside out, not from outside in by a fertilizer bomb in a truck. And so all these kind of things, but there were increase. I believe the budget was doubled for security measures, and anti-terrorism after that event. And after 9/11, of course, we saw a great increase in the budgets for, and even the whole creation of the Department of Homeland Security, and then you have things like
The
the
Patriot Act.
Patriot Act,
Uh,
exactly.
well, and that was written by Joe Biden, and that was written before 9/11,
Oh, way before. I mean,
right?
because
People
it,
have no
it was
idea.
hundreds of pages, and then they didn't even get a chance to read it before they voted on it, and they were basically threatened, and fear tactics were used in order to
Exactly.
push it through.
You're not a patriot. They've
Yeah.
got, there's another website I've been following very closely. He's doing a great job. It's willielohman.wordpress.com. And his article just out now, how proposed mental hygiene, this is the mental health law, and no fly, no buy bill will arbitrarily strip people of constitutional rights. And there are two bills immediately, right away. One's Representative Peter King, and he's a snake.
Uh-huh.
And the other one, he's also sponsor of the No Buy, No Fly, which Obama was out scolding everybody about, which would deny firearms and explosions to dangerous terrorists. Whatever they're going to decide.
Right.
But it says, and so this is something I just started looking at this. He says, I will now show you how both of these proposed bills will strip U.S. citizens of their constitutional rights through arbitrary, secretive means and begin the dangerous processes of one, creating official blacklists of U.S. citizens, and two, creating a new class of uncitizens in this country. So, what I'm seeing is they're kind of throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this one.
Right. Yeah, after the events of 9/11, I created two movies, one called the Torture King, Loss of Habeas Corpus, and how in that movie I showed how they basically had created an alternative justice system, the military tribunal system, and how basically they have labeled constitutionalists, Christians, patriots, anybody that, a conspiracy theorist, whatever, that they could label us as domestic terrorists. And if they did so, then we would lose our habeas corpus rights. We would lose our right to a speedy trial, trial by jury, all those kind of protections that are found in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. All that would be thrown out of the window. And you could be tortured in order to gain information from you. And then you can have that torture used as, whatever you said, used against you in this military tribunal system. I mean, it's just insane what's been going on, what's, the all the things that came about because of that whole false flag event. And I mean, we went from being a nation where you were innocent until proven guilty to being guilty until proven innocent. And I mean, that's a completely different way. And then all of the spying measures that were implemented, with all of the phone calls being recorded, everything you do on the internet being traced, everything is recorded now, and they have legal precedence and jurisdiction to do these things now, whereas it used to be illegal.
Right. And how many things don't we're not even aware of.
Oh
I,
yeah, totally.
I want to point this out. I get this question, you know, shouldn't we just be preaching the gospel and stay away from these things and not follow the truther movement? And I fall back on, well, truth matters. But even,
Absolutely.
I mean, yes, truth matters, but look, this is well, in times, but these are things that are slowly closing in to bring about the new world order, to bring about death. I mean, there's so much evil that is inherent in each of these things. I mean, even if, and I think this is why the person commented like that, if these events are taking place and nobody dies, they think it's not important. But each act is bringing more and more, like we're talking about here, where they're taking away our rights, they're getting more control. It's your book, Lucifer, Father of Cain. it showed me the whole grand design from the
Right.
beginning to the end. It's the Father, and the way that that he had planned throughout history, and Satan thinks he's going to win in the
Right.
end, and these are his machinations, and
Yes.
we need to fight against that, and in that process wake people up, and
Exactly.
people who don't know Christ at all could see for the first time what's all this crazy stuff going on around me. So I think we need to be on the forefront of crying out that this is wrong, and people got to know about it.
Absolutely. And we are the wisdom keepers. We're the holder of the secrets. We're some of the few that can help guide people and direct them to the real truth, which unites all of these things. Which, I believe that the whole premise that I lay out and present in Lucifer, the father of Cain, that is the key. That's the skeleton's key for helping us to understand who our enemies are and how this ties together the New World Order with the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, the wickedness in high places, because there is an underlying truth which unites all of these things. And until people can see that clearly and understand that this is a spiritual war and that the New World Order elites are blood connected as the physical progeny, as the children of the serpent, the serpent seed, the tares, the goats, that they you really can't understand it in the way that it is relayed and laid out as revelation within the gospel, which is why I think it's important that people come to revelation on so much of these things, and we are doing the work to try to help them to make sense of it, and for those that are willing and open, that will open themselves to the possibilities of the things that we discuss, we can really help them to bridge the gap, to connect the ancient mysteries and the esoteric side of New World Order and what's going on with the biblical and prophetic side of the gospel.
Yeah, it's Ephesians 6:12 in living. It's putting on the full armor of God for real.
Yes, exactly.
It's not just an ethereal concept, which I think is what the majority of Christians think. It's actually, we're doing battle against the forces of darkness that are perpetrating these acts upon the population, and worse to come. We don't know what's around the corner, but we know it will be worse.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because they're driving for an agenda, and they know that their time is short. So everything's has been accelerated. Everything's been pushed up in measure, and they are not trying to hide anything anymore. It's all in our face, and when they get this brazen and this bold, and they have no fear, but they're just, they're just pushing the foot on the gas pedal, and they're willing to go 200 miles an hour to take us where they want us to go, and that is dangerous for everybody.
Yeah, I think with Revelation that's coming out, the flat Earth, and just things ramping up as they are right now, like you said, they realize that the time is short, and to see all of this happening right now, it's time for people to wake up who haven't made a decision for Christ. You don't know what tomorrow brings. What are you living for? Francis Chan has this really great little presentation where he's holding a long, long, long rope, and there's this tiny little bit of it that's painted in red at the end. He said, "This is what you're living for here right now. This is your pension. This is your vacation. This is your home. This is your job. This is what you're living for right now. But all of this is your eternity. What are you living for?"
Yeah, exactly. Because you know when you really look at the bigger picture, if all it is for you is about money and materialism and accumulating things, or in leaving an inheritance for your children, I mean, those are really grand and noble things, but it has nothing to do with eternal inheritance, with the rest of eternity. I mean, and that's what is real, because this dream, this life is but it's but a temporary facade of what is really going on. And even though we are here to, the life and are living in the flesh and bodies and in this 9 to 5 world, um, all of this is an illusion, and it's one lifetime in the immortal journey of soul. And that's, you really have to put that into perspective, because this is but a blink of an eye. This is but a quickly passing dream, and what's real is on the other side.
Even with hardships that we might face on a daily basis or lifelong hardships, it's nothing to compare with the glory that awaits us, that we as children of Yeshua and bought by the blood of Jesus Christ, we are promised that. We know with a certainty that that is awaiting for us. And that, to me, I kind of feel like a spectator watching this, and it's
Yes,
fascinating to
yes.
me. But I mean, I see horrible things happen in the Middle East, the Yazidis, and my heart breaks for these young women who've been sold into slavery and sexual slaves, and there's just such horror. Um, but we need to be praying for those people. We need to do what we can do from this perspective, but we need to also realize that our life is just a moment in time here. It's a vapor, a breath, and what we need to be excited about is our lifetime eternal.
Yes, exactly. And I know that very few really live for the kingdom or prioritize it in any way. And I really feel for those that don't, whether, people put their kids as their number one priority, or their families. And I understand that, because I have a foot in both worlds as well. And I live to take care of my child and his my children, and all of that as well. But I know what my role and mission and my whole reason for being here is. I know who I am, what all of this is about, what, the background story for our being here, and our everything. And understanding that makes such a complete difference on, like, I live in a completely different world. Even though I'm here with all of you, the world that I live in is completely different, and it is spiritually driven. And even though I do the total 9 to 5 thing too, and having to pay money and support our bills and to make it from month to month and all of that, my whole real role, mission, goal, and priority is in serving the Most High God. And I know without a doubt that I am His servant, and that I am to bring forth His revelations as He leads me to understanding upon. And having that kind of outlook and that kind of understanding to life is completely different from what most people live. And I could only wish that people had that connection with the creator, our maker, and also our savior Messiah. I wish that for everybody.
Amen. I know I often get caught up in what's going on, and that the news, the headlines, and that. But I really want to keep focus on God and worshiping Him. There was a verse that I read yesterday and shared that, for our conversation is in heaven, from whence also we look for the Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. That was Philippians 3:20.
Yes, thank you, sister. Thank you so much. And God bless you, Kathy, and all that you do. And God bless all of you out there. Those of you that do not have relationship with the Father or the Son, please look into it, and see if it's real, because the answers that are contained in the gospel can help you make sense of world in a way that most people are living without. The answers are there. I mean, I've been led to the truth in a way that has completely changed my life, and I can only wish that for all of you. I pray that you can find that and that you will seek it, because if you do, the same thing is there awaiting for you as well. He is waiting on all of us. And I know that that sounds like, you know, church or gibberish, but it's real. It's the reality of what's really behind everything. God bless all. Good night. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Good night. God bless all.
Talk to you soon. Peace.